Okay, here we go. We're recording. This is great. And we're about to go live. There you go. We are going to go live.
Your show will go live in 5 seconds.
There you go.
4,
Countdown.
3, 2, 1. Blog Talk Radio.
Yay. Okay. This is Blog Talk Radio, and this is the K Factor, where K equals kindness. And the factors are all the things that lead to it. And it's my pleasure to tell you about this new series that we've launched. So every day we have a theme, and what I've done for the benefit of myself, my associates, and for all of you in our listening audience is I've themed each day. And so now we're to Friday. We started it on a Sunday, and Sunday being a great day to kind of gear up for everything, right? Get reflective, get your respite, and get everything going and ready. And so we've worked through each day, and today is called Freedom Friday. And I have invited just this incredible human being who I liked bingo from the moment we met, 5 friends at a Starbucks in St. Louis, Missouri. This is Dr. Charlie Cartwright. Good morning, Charlie Cartwright. How are you?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
I'm just delightful. I think it is so much fun to be doing this.
Absolutely. I'm excited to get started.
Yeah, me too. So, you know, it's interesting because Charlie and I come at things from the same heart and from a place where from 2 different parts of how to do life, we come up to this place where we meet, and every conversation that we have, we both get into this space where we say, isn't it great that we're in alignment? We had a long conversation last night about planning all this and everything, and even just the way we've got our atmosphere set up. You know, we're ready for business and for comfort. We both love windows. Let the light shine, you know, and we're ready to go. So, Charlie, there's so much to talk about in terms of the theme of Freedom Fridays, but I really want people to get a sense of who you are, because I think that you are absolutely magnificent, and we got a whole hour. So who the heck is Charlie? Who's this Dr. Charlie Cartwright guy? And how did you get there? Are you a brain surgeon or an astrophysicist? Are you? I'm baiting because I know, but tell everybody who are you? Where'd you come from? What's the skinny?
You know, it's wow. Everybody's has an interesting story, and I guess mine's right in there.
Yeah.
With that, you know, grew up in a small town in the Midwest, Olathe, Kansas, and that was an interesting childhood growing up in the 60s and early 70s, and you know, the country has changed significantly since then.
Yeah.
And you know, growing up, my grandparents lived in this house really right next to the railroad tracks. Like now,
Really?
if you go by that space, the city bought it, and it's just green space, because it was probably from the side of the house, it was probably somewhere between 50 and 60 feet from the track. So it was right there. So, you know, humble beginnings there. And, but my grandfather was a World War II veteran. My grandmother worked really hard. She's an entrepreneur. And I really would work. I started working with her when I was in middle school and cleaning office buildings. And that was the thing we did. And so she was like, I think when I look back at my childhood growing up and spending a ton of time with my grandparents, my grandmother was kind of like Mr. Miyagi and the Karate Kid, you know. And I didn't know what was happening, right? She's teaching me all these things.
Oh, how neat.
And in a good way. And she really loved me. And I think that she definitely taught me how to be a gentleman, for sure, and how to treat other people. And then my grandfather would, just out of the blue, we'd be watching television or something, and he'd just lean over and tell me something that he thought I needed to know. And
Really?
so, years of that, it was just so valuable. And so I think that planted the seeds there to where I just wanted to be the best person I could be. And I want to be the best human being I can be. And I want to help other people really navigate this life in the best way possible. And at the end of that when my time is up here, that I want the world to be a little bit better because I was here, and that the fact that I was here, there was a positive difference. And so
Hmm.
that's kind of the underlying current for me in everything that I do. And so whether it be relaxing with friends, reading a book, internet research, everything I do has a purpose. I don't just look out the window and and space out. There's a purpose to pretty much every second that I spend, and I'm enjoying life and really enjoying meeting people, learning new things, and being as positively impactful on my community as I can be.
So you came from a big family, and you yet, even in a big family, got some wonderful attention. I love the story about your grandparents. I actually heard that part before.
Yeah, they were such good people, and you know, love me. I won't say unconditionally, but they love me. You know, they love
Right.
me enough to get me through some tough childhood things. My parents, I think, had some struggles for sure, and my father in particular had some demons that he never did slay, with alcoholism and anger and all these things that went with that. But I had a safe place to go on the weekends, and that was the difference.
You know what? I am so glad that you said exactly what you just said, because Freedom Fridays, in a lot of ways, ought to be a day when you and I are coming together and we're talking about these kinds of issues, because the way that your mom and dad loved you enough to allow you the time to be invited by your grandparents to go to them was a whole freedom for you, out of a circumstance where maybe during that time that you're with your grandparents, your parents had time for trying to figure things out between the two of them or whatever, right? That, I think that one of the beautiful things about our culture is when family really comes together and affords one another opportunities for respite and for learning. And it sounds like, you're laughing about unconditional love. Yeah, right, I had it too, but I had to behave myself in order to really get the experience of it. It's like,
True.
well, wait a second, you can't, how dare you?
Yeah, there was some conditions. That's for
Yeah. Yeah,
sure.
right, exactly. I mean, they can absolutely love you, but they might not like you very much in these certain
Exactly.
moments, right?
Exactly.
So, we're both Midwesterners. You're so fortunate to have had your grandparents. My grandparenting story is so different. But then how did you end up becoming the doctor that you are? And I love that story, because your journey through life has been so interesting. And when you say that you don't look out the window and just space out, you're so engaged in your mind, you're so active in your brain. I love that about you. And it's driven you to work and seek work and work hard and diligently and smart, and then look for ways to just continue to feed that great brain of yours. So talk about what your career work and career path have been, including that doctoral pathway.
Yeah, so I made plenty of mistakes along the way, and I came out of my childhood, just with a lot of anger, ton
Yeah.
of it. I felt, experienced my fair share of racism, I think, and then I think also just growing up in that household environment, it was really tough. There was domestic violence and all those things and
Well,
threats, and then, psychological abuse. And then I had found my way through athletics, and I thought that was my ticket. And it did get me to college. And then when on a scholarship, and then when I discovered when I got to college on a scholarship, at the time I didn't know what it was, but now I realized that I had a real challenge with social anxiety. And so for me to look into a classroom and see 150 strangers in there and go and sit down was not natural at all. And I would just get sweaty and I would just leave, right? And I remember the first year of college, I did fine, my grades were fine. But I realized looking back that all my teammates were in those classes.
Oh, really?
Year two, there starts to be spreading out, and I had a lot of classes that didn't have any teammates in them, and so those classes I didn't go to. Well, that's a problem, right? So after 3 years, I kind of boxed myself in a corner there, and I didn't even know how to articulate the issue. But I don't know that any football player wants to go to his coach and say, "Hey, I'm scared to go to class." I mean, what kind of? So it was a strange thing, and so I left there. And when I left school, because I got suspended for like spring practice because I hadn't passed enough credit hours, and so then you're having all this self doubt of like, am I smart enough to be here, and all of those things, and so I ended up just quitting, right? Just quit the team, quit school, quit everything, and went to work, and that wasn't really a good solution. But at the time where I was, maturity and space wise, I didn't really realize where I was at, and went to work for UPS, and I worked hard in order to get a promotion. And then I remember going to this school. I don't think they have it anymore, but it was called SBTS, Supervisors Basic Training School.
Yeah.
3 weeks away from your family, and that's back before cell phones. You got 30 minutes. No, you got 5 minutes every other day to call home. That was it. Okay.
That was it?
That was it.
And that was what UPS, your employer, did to you?
That was UPS. So they don't do it anymore because it was so interesting because we were on a college campus in the summer, so there's no college in session. So you're isolated, and then, you're getting maybe 3-4 hours of sleep a night because we had all this homework and all these things to do. And then there wasn't a lot of food, believe it or not.
Really?
And so if you look at brainwashing technique, it's isolation, food deprivation, and sleep deprivation.
Yeah,
Those
right.
are 3 keys to brainwashing. So you're kind of getting brainwashed.
Did you say this was 3 weeks?
3 weeks, yeah.
3 weeks.
You're in class six days a week from like 7, and you had activities from like 7 a.m. to around 11 p.m. at night. And then you had homework, you see. And so you had all these things to memorize. I remember they were called T57s. And so it was basically a protocol, could be starting a truck or whatever the protocol was, but you had to recite these things by memory, word for word.
Oh my.
And so I discovered at that time that I had a really good memory. But my roommate, and it was all about operations, my roommate was an accountant, so he had no operational experience. Well, you can't go to bed until your roommate knows what you know. So
really?
I spent half the night with this guy trying to help him with these things. And so at some point during that time, he asked me a question. He said, "How do you memorize all this stuff?" I said, "I don't know." And he said, "Hey, when you memorize these things," he says, "do you just remember it somehow, or do you see the words?" I said, "No, I see the words from the document that I say." He said, "Oh, you have a photographic memory." My father, my entire childhood, had made a big deal about people with a photographic memory were geniuses, right? And he had impressed that upon me. And now I'm in my 20s and I discover that I have a photographic memory. So that was the first time I really felt like I was intelligent in my whole life.
Wow.
And then so, went the UPS career, went into leadership, and I imploded, towards the end, just because I didn't have any balance whatsoever, and all the skills that I've developed over time, I didn't have them. So quit that job, went back to school, and then during that time, going back to school, finished my bachelor's degree, got my doctorate degree, and I worked for FedEx Ground for a decade during that space.
Wow.
And the people I met there and in a different circumstance and environment. And so UPS, I was sales and operations. Now FedEx Ground, I was in admin and operations. And dealing with independent contractors is different than dealing with employees and union environment.
Very
So
much so.
all of these things really molded me and the people that I came into contact with, the situations, and making mistakes along the way. But the whole time I was just searching, who am I? What should I be doing? How can I be a contributor? How can I be successful? What does that look like personally and professionally? And so it's just this process of time, and it takes time. And, you know, acquiring a couple of mentors later in life, and all of a sudden things start clicking. So the effort was always there, the desire was always there, but I didn't have the direction to get where I am. But I've been fortunate to have a couple of really great mentors that took an interest in me.
Yeah.
And gave some direction in there, and then I could figure it out. And but we're all a work in progress. But that's really how I got to where we are today.
You know what's so intriguing about you is that I'm thinking of the theme of our show, which, by the way, we'll be doing every Friday. And so this is just going to be, we're booked. and so the idea is for us to have our audience get to know us, get to know who we are, and learn the kinds of things that we can bring to you. And in the midst of the theme of kindness, the idea that the K factor is about all the things that lead to kindness. I always love wherever it was that I heard it, and it did not originate in my mind. I somehow pieced it together or cobbled it together or heard it from some other source or sources, that the real currency in this life is kindness. And as you're describing the activity of your grandparents, a lot of discipline there, but also a tremendous amount of kindness. As you're describing these humble beginnings, you know, your grandmother, you know, she no doubt valued and needed your athleticism to do the physical work that she was doing, and that was of major benefit. But there was a kindness in that, and also from your grandfather, the way that you said that he would lean into you and tell you what he thought you needed to know for whatever it was that was inspiring him. So there's all this kindness, and when people come at you from those places, you know, it's so safe, and you're describing being in a big family but having that attention, being in a small town. There's no preparation for you to go to college and go into that huge environment. I know, having taught in a university for many years, I was always anxious for my students, about my students, because they had, no matter where they came from, they had no preparation for being away from their parents, their homeland, you know, and when I say homeland, I mean home ground, and walking into this huge atmosphere. And whenever kids walked into my classroom, I was always trying to figure out ways to make, you know, whether it was a class of 25 or 250, how do I make it a small town experience, a small room experience, a small class experience? Because as you were describing, being that guy who would walk in and get sweaty and freak out, I would have one of my teaching assistants follow you out of the room and say, hey, Charlie, you know what? We get it. Come on back in. I'll sit by you. And then I would invite you back to my office afterwards to have a conversation with you. But people get lost in our culture. And so what happened with you, the way that it sounds to me, is that you had this enormous opportunity that you were inspired and motivated to do, right? And it was just this dream come true, and the ticket became the winning ticket, and you get to go to the university, and holy bejeez, there's really no no prep, no guidance. And so an adolescent is still a kid trying to figure out childhood from adulthood, right? So you're in this adult environment as a kid, as an adolescent, and you have both the fear factor and then also the wisdom to look for a freedom out of that angst, which to you was work. And bless your heart that you didn't just drop out and say the heck with it. I'm so frustrated by life. You were ambitious, and I hear ambition running through you. The other thing that I think is interesting as you're describing this 3-week boot camp. Oh my gosh. I mean, even for the Marines, you know, I think they give them a lot of food, you know, and they make them work together. But the thing that I like about what you said that really clicked things for you was that there was accountability. They were doing a strange kind of a team building, right? You and your roommate were in it together. Heaven help you if you went to sleep with the knowledge and your roommate showed up for stunking the next day. So you had accountability, and in the building of that relationship under conditions of exhaustion, he started noticing things about you that he was grateful for. And you were able to infiltrate him and probably help him through that course, right?
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, there you go. And then, so you have this work experience at UPS. Here's what I love. When I would get one winter, I got a delivery back to back, UPS and FedEx. And my stairs, it had been so fast snowing, my stairs were full of snow. The FedEx guy was a guy, the UPS guy was a gal, and she had a hard time delivering this wood burning stove thing that I had from the Amish people. You know, it was wonderful. Electric, you put it, but it looks like a wood burning stove. Anyway, I said to the two of them, is there any way to have you all team up to do this delivery? They were like, oh no, arch enemies, no can do. And I said, really? And they went, nah, we can do it, but don't tell anybody. So,
Awesome.
you know, I think it's so funny that you went from UPS to FedEx, because the transfer of knowledge and skill in information, in training, and blending between those two companies, what a gift. That had to be fascinating.
It really was. That's 20 years between the two companies, 10 years
Wow.
each. And so the lessons that I learned, there's no replacement for that. The expectation is sky high, the pressure is sky high, everything, professionalism, the attention to detail. There's just things that you can't learn in any other environment.
Yeah.
And to be able to navigate that is really a challenge, and it's amazing looking back. Like, hey, so accomplished so many things in those environments, but the learning was really magnificent. Just the opportunity to learn. So I'm telling you, it was like going to school, you know, in a big way.
Yeah.
Every day.
Isn't it interesting though, the way in our culture, you know, if people don't hear that, they don't understand that these guys who are just doing this job, I mean, what's the big deal? Just get in a truck and drive and deliver the packages. So I mean, everything is what's so about that, because you know, it's kind of like school bus drivers. I did a talk in front of, you know, like 900 school bus drivers, and they're sitting there, and I said, it's such an honor to be in front of you. And they're like, what are you talking about? You're the lady with the big, you know, credentials, and you're leading the whole keynote here. What are you talking to us about that for? And they thought I was going to con them somehow. And I said, the point is, you are transporting our nation's most precious cargo. I mean, there were like tears in the room. And what FedEx guys do and UPS guys do, and now the Amazon guys, you are delivering, particularly in 2020, right? I mean, when for sure you were doing it, you're delivering life support, not just a luxury, but really life support.
Yeah, it's amazing, that cargo that goes through there. I mean, sometimes, I mean, it was different. There were some, like you said, life-saving things that go through those systems, and people on the outside have no idea of the importance of some of these things, or a family heirloom, or there's
Oh
just
yeah.
so much that goes through there every day. And so you really learn so much about how the world works and what's possible. And I will never trade those years, and I would never go back to those years either.
Yeah, right.
But I would trade that
Bye
knowledge.
bye, rearview
Yeah,
mirror.
that was gold. That was golden.
Yeah.
Looking back, there's just things when I speak to leaders and different people about challenges. Yeah, I have a ton of education and a ton of research, but I'm also speaking from experience.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I know exactly what they're going through and different challenges in the work environment.
So then where was it that you snuck in the doctor?
Yeah, that's an interesting story, because I had one of the things that kept coming up during my UPS career was I hadn't finished school.
Yeah.
And they were really, big on that piece of it. And so if, all things being equal, if you were going for a promotion, two candidates and one had their degree and one didn't, want the candidate with the degree is going to get that position. And that's
Right.
probably true in so many places, and that's fair. And so I heard that so many times, and I remember going back to school, and then I said, well, I started out part-time at FedEx Ground, and it was RPS at the time. FedEx came in and bought them, I want to say around 2000, 2001, there, but it was RPS. And I remember getting a promotion. It didn't take long because I had 10 years of experience. So, 6 months in, I'm getting promotion, part-time supervisor, which was great because I had benefits and I had a salary. And so I knew how much money was coming in every week, which helped with school and
Oh yeah.
budgeting and all that kind of stuff. And I remember the manager from that terminal, I'm going in and we're talking about the salary negotiation, and I accept. And so it should have been a happy day. And before I left, he looked at me and he said, I won't even consider you for full-time leadership until you finish your degree. And then he told me the story about him walking across the bridge on the last day when he graduated. And I remember turning around, and there was a fax machine sitting outside of his office against the wall. And I remember looking at this fax machine and thinking, that's the last time anybody throws my education in my face. Like, I'm done. So I finished the degree. When I finished, I remember finishing my bachelor's degree. I went back, and he was gone, long gone before I finished. But I looked back at that fax machine.
Yeah.
Then when I finished my doctorate degree, I went back, same space, and looked at that fax machine, right? And now I'm standing here, and it took for me to finish my bachelor's and my doctorate, 5 years and 4 months. I remember exactly from the day I started, and to accomplish that. And the doctorate, I thought that I said to myself, I want to challenge myself to accomplish something that I think might be outside of my reach. And so I said, hey, I'm going to go for this degree. And if I don't achieve it, then I'll be like the other 99% of the people on the planet. I won't be, I won't have my doctorate degree. And so it was a stretch. It was a stretch thing for me at the time. And, but it's a life changer for sure, because that level of understanding and knowledge is that it's in a different world than getting your bachelor's. Yeah. It's a completely different world. I remember being responsible for about 500 pages of reading a week, and the testing is just it is very, very, very challenging. And then to throw work on top of that.
Yep.
Yeah, it was something else.
By the way, friends, we're live. And just like on real TV, there are life noises that come out. And a lot of landscapers are out there on Fridays doing what they're trying to do to make your home beautiful for the weekend. Thank you very much. I'm going to say it's our mascot.
Yeah.
So with your doctoral work though, you didn't find your niche there. You really didn't find your comfort zone there. You don't really like to talk about it. You love being Dr. Charlie and Dr. Charlie Cartwright, but you resist. But it was, so this really, to me today, the thing that and again, I'm going to bring back to the theme of our show, just doing it gave you the freedom of release of awkwardness that you had about not, in your mind, having enough education.
Yes, yes, it was such a just a mindset change for sure.
Yeah.
And that is interesting because, again, I've never had it thrown in my face again, as you might imagine.
Yeah.
No one says that to me,
Yeah.
ever,
Yeah.
ever. And so it's a liberating thing. And then, of course, it was a big decision to move away from practicing, and because it wasn't, I discovered that as much as I loved it, it wasn't my passion.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
didn't wake me up in the morning going, I can't wait to get to work and all those things. And so that decision comes with a fair amount of criticism, because there's always someone that thinks they know better than you do.
Yeah. Right. What you ought to be doing.
What you should be doing.
Right.
And so, but I did find my space, and that doctorate degree is so important to me because what it definitely symbolizes an amount of work, and it's really hard to appreciate the amount of work it is until you've been through it. But people do respect that degree.
Yeah.
For sure. But the biggest thing about it to me is your ability to assimilate information. Is you have to be at a world-class level. And so it doesn't matter now what the subject matter is. If someone says, hey, I want you to deliver a speech on this topic, and they handed me a book with 500 pages on Friday, on Monday morning, when I delivered that presentation, people would have no idea that I learned it that weekend.
Yeah. Right.
You just have this ability, because basically how I always describe it is when you learn new information, it forces your brain to build highways that the information can run on. So you're building highways to carry more information and more information. So basically, when you're going through, you're getting your doctorate, you got these 8-lane highways that you've had to build to assimilate that information. Well, the great thing about these highways, they can hold any kind of information. So whatever information I'm bringing into my brain is coming in on 8-lane highway. So things go by pretty quick, and it's great.
You are indeed a quick study.
I am.
And the discipline in that, that the thing that I think about in terms of all the work that I do and what my life perspective is everything starts in our head. In this skull of ours, in this brain, we have literally the universe. It is unlimited potential. We can travel anywhere we want, either in our imagination or by traveling through books, whatever it is. And that is the ultimate freedom. And when you combine that with our faith, it is such an enormous freedom, because that there's this unlimited potential for us in this vehicle, our body, our physical body, us as spiritual beings with this. It's really weird. I never thought about it until this very nanosecond. Our brain is really our spiritual being that has just got wings to take us into flight anywhere, anytime. But if we don't exercise the discipline, and it's interesting, Charlie, because as you're talking, I'm hearing all about discipline. And you went back to the Karate Kid from the very beginning, thinking your grandma had you as the Karate Kid. And that isn't that one of the things that we wish for our children, not just the ones that we personally bring into the world, but for the children of the world, is for them to be children and learn happiness and trust and play, but that they also learn discipline. And I don't mean sit in your chair discipline because it's punitive. I mean the discipline of brush your teeth and daily habits, and then the discipline of using and exercising your mind and learning.
You know, I have a story on discipline. So I was a really good athlete, and I gravitated toward football because that was a good outlet for all the anger.
Yeah.
And my freshman year, we had a football coach. His name was Mr. Krauts, and he was the chemistry teacher from the high school. And at that time, the freshmen were in middle school. Now they've integrated freshmen in the high school, which is really a better fit. But at that time, it was 7th, 8th, 9th grade. We're in a middle school, or they called it junior high school back then. And he was a chemistry teacher in the high school. By the time I got to high school, he was the vice principal. But he would come down and coach on this team, and he was a defensive coach.
Okay.
And one of his assignments at the end of practice was we'd run wind sprints, and he was the one that would have us on work on our cardio.
Okay.
And so our practice was, it was yards, 10 yards, 20 yards, 30 yards, 40 yards, 50 yards. So we ran 10 of each.
Wow.
So we ran 10 10s, 10 20s, 10 30s, 10 40s, 10 50s. You had to get down in the 3-point stance, right? 2 feet, one hand.
Yeah.
Which, when you get really tired, it gets hard to get down there.
Yeah, but right.
And so you have to be in a 3-point stance before he would blow the whistle to signal you to run.
Oh my.
Every time he'd say, get down in 3-point stance, he'd say, what's the word?
Uh-oh.
You know what the word was?
Oh no.
Discipline.
Oh.
Run. Tweet. Get down in 3-point stance. What's the word? Discipline. What's the word? Discipline. 50 times a practice.
Wow. Wow.
What's the word? So here I am. It's 40 years ago.
Wow.
What's the word?
Discipline.
It's discipline. It got burned into me. And so anytime that I am tired and I don't feel like doing it,
Ah,
the word.
I love that. That is a great tool for our audience.
Now, here's something really cool. He came back to our 20-year class reunion. And as soon as he walked in, I said, what's the word? Discipline. And he looked at me and said, I can't believe you still remember that. I was like, are you kidding me? I must have said that 1,000 times.
You know what is beautiful about that? That's another freeing concept. And it's an exercise. It's a gift that we've just given to our audience. And the thing that's so beautiful about it, Charlie, is you have got, people learn all different ways. You know this as well as I do. And the more channels that we can bring learning happening through, it makes it more powerful because it's a visceral integration, right? So you had the physical, the visual, the auditory, the visceral. I mean, you had the smell of it. I mean, you're on the ground there. And by the time you're done, you have the aroma of your sweat. And I mean, that is just absolutely powerful. That's incredible.
And here's the other piece of that.
Yeah.
Under my breath, I called him a lot of names. While he was running it.
What's so funny is that people on the radio that are hearing us on Blog Talk Radio can't see what you're doing, but here I have to tell you, you guys, you got to come and see the video over on YouTube because we're videotaping it on Zoom and then it goes up on YouTube. But here's what's really funny. It's Charlie says that he leans in like it's a secret and then he's looking over his shoulder like the coach is there. That is fabulous. Yeah,
I tell you, but I'm so grateful for that today. But I wasn't too grateful for it at the time. But wow, what a gift that he gave us. What
an incredible gift. And how many people get trapped in the middle of their own being, in the middle of their own circumstance because they haven't had a guide to lead them into genuine discipline and teach them how to do that, what that's all about. And we've had it from multiple ways. I mean, I certainly had it from my parents, from the schools that I went to, from the athletics that I was in, swimming, figure skating, gymnastics, track, running, jumping high hurdles. you know, whatever it is in terms of what we have to commit to in order to really learn. And then really, I mean, all throughout your life, if you really want freedom, it's not about backing away from things. Freedom is really about engaging in things. And with to get freedom in this life, we have to, it's not about working hard. It's about working smart. It's about working consistent. It's about working diligently on a strategy that you know is going to produce results that are going to afford you your freedom. And I don't know that a lot of people embrace that as a reality. Do you think?
Yeah, I think it's definitely something that is not in the conscious awareness of many people, and it's fundamental to freedom. There's a Navy SEAL, I believe, Jocko. I can't remember Jocko's last name. I might mispronounce it, but I think it's Willinack. And I think he wrote a book called Discipline Brings Freedom. And that's something they learned, in the military.
Yeah.
And it brings freedom, but it feels, maybe when you're learning it, maybe feels restrictive to a
Mm.
certain extent, but it brings the freedom of so many things. Like, for instance, being disciplined about how we take care of our bodies, both physically and emotionally,
Right.
brings the freedom from disease, right? Freedom from sickness, freedom from so many things. And so, but it's through that discipline of how you're going to treat your body and treat your mind. So it's discipline is fundamental principle to having a life
I
in
want
which you can thrive.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to look here and see if I pulled up before we went on here the success formula that you created, and I want to find it again because it is so beautiful. So while oh my goodness, look at this. Whoa. All right, I'm gonna do a screen share. Um, there we go. Share. Look at that. All right, friends. You know, this is something that Dr. Charlie Cartwright came up with. And Charlie, I really love this. You know, I love this. I had you come and talk to the Missouri Venture Forum about this. And to me, this is about the discipline that you have to put a formula together. This took tremendous discipline for you to put this together. And just can you talk about this for like about 5 maybe 7 minutes and tell people what the overall concept is, and then say what the letters mean? Because I mean, we could do and will do an entire hour about it, just this, because it's so freeing, right?
Absolutely.
Tee it up
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah. So the concept came from wanting to better understand leadership and outcomes, right?
Yeah.
And I'd had a ton of success at UPS. I'd had a ton of success at FedEx. From there, I went on to work for Lockton Companies, which is it's the largest privately held insurance brokerage firm in the world. Had a lot of success there, and I wanted to know why. Am I getting lucky? Am I doing some things right? Obviously, I was doing some things right, but also I wanted to understand, are there things that I should be doing that I don't even know about? And then are there things that I'm doing that I need to stop doing that aren't contributing to the greater good? So I dove into this research not knowing what I would find. And it's really interesting because there's a ton of research on human behavior, leadership, and that's what I was wanting to understand, is how to better communicate and connect and influence other human beings. And so there's research in university, there's research in transportation, in the medical field, in manufacturing, construction, aviation, military. There's a ton of research out there, but what I found was that all these business verticals, they don't speak to one another about their
Right.
research. So my idea was, hey, what if I looked at all their research that I could get my hands on, and what would the story tell? And so this formula, I had 10 intensive years of putting it together, but it's really a result of 34 years of studying leadership and understanding it. And in that last 10, really focusing on what were the key elements. And so these are the elements that really popped off the page to me, as this is a very clear path on how to connect with and motivate human beings. And I'm not talking about just in this country, the United States. I'm talking about human beings in general, in any country, in any population.
I agree.
We're all wired the same.
Yep.
What motivates human beings in Africa also motivates people in the United States, Mexico, Russia. Doesn't matter, because we're all connected that way. So you notice in this formula, it's a very scientific formula, and it's bracketed, which is intentional, and it's bracketed, and it says T to the power of B. Okay, that T stands for trust to the power of belief. And the thing about trust is, you look at a mathematical equation, 0 times anything is 0, right?
Yep.
So inside the formula, we can be doing everything right, being intentional about these things, and we lose trust, it cancels it all out. So it's all about building trust with other human beings. When we build trust with other human beings, then that's where our influence becomes greater. And belief, I put there as an exponent of trust, because the longer that you've maintained trust with another human being, their belief in you gets stronger exponentially over time. So it's natural. Now, the beautiful thing about trust also is it's a multiplier. So everything you're doing inside the formula, and you have trust, is multiplying the effect and the impact. So let's go through it here. First, we have that first principle is care to the power of warmth. Caring, genuinely caring about other human beings, but to the power of warmth. Very powerful combination. L stands for love. Love is so powerful, and especially in the environment that we're in now, you can see where it's really needed. And
Absolutely.
I remember a quote from Dr. King, Martin Luther King, said that the only power strong enough to turn an enemy into our friend is love. And so it's huge. And really quickly on love, there's a study out of the University of North Carolina on love and its impact on human beings. And that study says that love impacts everything people think, feel, do, and become. So whenever I talk to leaders and I said, hey, how would you love to impact everything your people think, feel, do, and become? Oh, I love that. You got to love them. Big one. Next is respect. The A stands for appreciation to the power of authenticity. We got to be authentic with our appreciation. Next is empowerment to the power of encouragement. Then we go to the V, that's value. And when I first was looking at this, I had diversity in there, but it just didn't feel right. And when I arrived at value, and I'm talking about valuing another human being for what they bring to the table.
Yeah.
I'm valuing their age. I'm valuing their gender, their race, their socioeconomic background, the country, their origin, their religion, their faith, all their beliefs. I'm valuing that human being.
Yep.
If I'm valuing everything that there is about that human being, then naturally I'm going to be diversity and inclusion come along for the ride there.
Yeah, I love that. It's value just on the fact that you are a human being.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that.
And you're unique. That. And you're unique, just like everybody else.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
We're all unique.
Yes.
And that's the amazing thing about the human experience. Then we've got meaning to the power of hope is big, and then meaning, that's meaningful work. Meaning in what I'm doing every day is so important. So my work, what I do in my life, has a lot of meaning to me, and and it has meaning to other people. And that's such a driver and motivator to human behavior. Then we've got progress and meaningful work. That's the number one motivator in the workplace, is people seeing progress in meaningful work. That's an amazing combination. Then the last piece of that formula is ownership to the power of approachability. So as a human being, I'm owning all my outcomes. Something didn't go right, I'm not blaming Dr. Deb or Dr. Phil or whoever there is to blame. I'm taking responsibility, that extreme ownership for my outcome. When we take responsibility for our outcomes, we become very powerful. When we give that responsibility away to other people, we become very weak. And then as a human being, that A stands for approachability. I need to be approachable. There's been so many mentors that have come in my life and helped me, but they would not have come in my life and helped me if I had not been approachable.
Right.
And so, or other people coming to me now for advice and mentorship, I'm approachable. And so it's such a powerful thing. So that's a really quick overview of the people success formula. And so basically, mindfully and intentionally practicing these elements, these principles, you're going to be successful with your people relationships, barring some illness someone's struggling with or something like that. It can be hard to connect. Otherwise, you're going to be able to influence, motivate, and move another human being by following these principles.
Well, I'll tell you what, Charlie, the reason I love that you gave that talk, and you did it so eloquently. You know, for those of you who are seeing the video, it's beautiful and it's colorful. For those of you who are hearing us on Blog Talk Radio, when this video gets released and when the posts go out off of the Blog Talk Radio show for Freedom Fridays onto each of the social media platforms, you will see this visually, and it's beautiful. It's so crisp, it's so compassionate, and it's also so logical and so strategic. It's very intellectual and it's very emotional, all combined, which is what we need in our world always, for people to be able to be truly functional and for us to have a civilized society. Because when you're talking about people success, yeah, you and I are both working in business and wanting businesses to be healthy, but we're also working with organizations and not-for-profits and our own families, our own friendships and love affairs and neighbor relations, and knowing that in every part of life, that's what I love about your formula, is in every part of life where there are people, wherever there are more, two or more of us, you know, we got a politic going on. And if we can all operate within this, and you're right, trust and the belief in that trust, holy cow.
Yeah, we'd have, if everyone practiced this, we'd achieve world peace in very short order. And
yes.
The thing that I always impress upon my leaders is when I come in and teach this formula to their leadership, so it's an internal thing. And so we're learning how to treat one another and lead our team to achieve the best outcomes, right? So the bonus content always comes this way, Dr. Deb. So after we've installed it, we went through, everyone understands, then I give the bonus content. So my bonus content is this. What's going to happen if you treat your customers this way? What's going to happen if you treat your customers with care, love, respect, appreciation? You think that'll go over well? Oh, absolutely. Hey, what if you go home and treat your wife this way?
Yeah.
What if you go home and treat your children this way?
Yeah.
What if you go home and treat your next door neighbor this way?
Yeah.
Right? So it's a huge, huge thing. And I'm so excited to just be of service to people and help people. And I've tell you what, I've had many husbands come to me after the fact and say, hey, you really helped me with my marriage. You helped me because I was struggling and I didn't know what to do. Yeah. And so being intentional about this is so key. A lot of people, Dr. Deb, want to be successful in their relationships. They want to have a successful marriage. They want to have a successful business team and business. They don't know exactly how. And so this is a blueprint. This is a formula. This is a recipe that you can follow. And at the end, you will succeed.
You know, one of the things I'd like to ask you to do today, Charlie, if you have an opportunity, and I know we both have so many things going on, but if you would share a document with me, I'll take the weight off of your shoulders. If you would share a document with me that goes with this logo of yours, right? Because it really is, it's a logo, it's your brand. That is what each letter means, so that I can post that. I will blast that out along with what it is that we've done here today, so that people have an opportunity to understand again what that formula means, what every letter on there means. Can you do that?
Absolutely.
That would be great. That would be great. So, you know, friends, with the whole theme of today, in the last several minutes that we've got left with you, I hope that what you feel is a sense of intrigue and motivation and inspiration and connection to Charlie and I and the landscaper who's out there. I'm loving that guy, I'll tell you what, and respecting him and caring and trusting and believing in my trust in him. He's doing it straight. It's amazing. It's really hilly out there too, by the way. It's not an easy job. The thing that we want to do in this episode, and then every single time that you come back and join us, is we want you to feel our connection to one another and our commitment to wanting to help you be doing the kindest things to yourself, and letting the factors include Freedom Fridays. So that if you just imagine, you take what content we've delivered to you here today, the funny stuff and Charlie's story and in our talking back and forth about it, and then you take the People's Success Labs formula and you apply it just the way that Charlie has invited others to apply it. How about if you apply it to yourself? How about if you apply it just the way he said, to your spouse, your significant other, your friends, your neighbors, your employees, your contractors, whoever's in your midst, right, Charlie?
Absolutely.
And then keep coming back to join us again and again, so that we can refresh you and help you finish out your week, or maybe your week begins on Friday. Wherever it is that you're at, we just wanted to make the day sacred. And on that note, do you have some closing thoughts, Mr. Dr. Charlie Cartwright?
Absolutely. Just appreciate everyone stopping by, and it's just an honor to have this opportunity to speak to you all, and I look forward to learning more about our audience as the time goes on as well.
Yeah, me too. All right, on that note, here's what we're going to do. This is the fun part. We end the call and we end the episode, and we end the episode there. And it says, are you sure you want to end the episode? I think we're ready. 1, 2, 3. All right. So then we're going to blast it out. And here on this video, I'm going to stop the screen sharing, because we want to give everybody a good full picture tutelure. Goodbye. Charlie, thanks. It was great doing this with you. I love spending this time.
Awesome. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's such a pleasure, and I always enjoy it every time.
Yeah, and guess what? Now we're co-hosts.
That's right.
Okay, we'll blast out our show and get a good audience going. Peace out, everybody. Have a great weekend. This is your host, Dr. Deb Carlin, with my co-host, Dr. Charlie Cartwright. See ya.